Hey guys, today we are building a live stream setup. I want to take you along, show you how I'm going to build this, all the gear I'm using, all the cables, live stream switcher. I'm going to show you guys how I'm doing everything. But first, we're going to get some coffee. Large iced blueberry coffee. Thank you so much. No, not all those drinks are for me. In case you were wondering. I'm telling you, iced blueberry coffee with cream and sugar is the absolute best coffee. You can't tell me otherwise. Okay, we just got to the church. Going to start taking everything in. We have so much stuff to take in, but we'll get it. So the big empty lobby behind me is where I'm going to do the live stream setup. There is some natural light coming through the front, but I am going to set up some of my own lights. That way there's just some natural light coming through. Obviously, if the sun changes, it's going to adjust the lighting of my talent. So I want the scene to be as evenly lit throughout the day as possible. So I'm going to still set up my own lights, but if you can, always have your shoot closer to natural light. It's just already going to look that much better. One thing I want to note here is it's important to know where your talent is going to stand before you get everything set up. So I positioned the countertop that they were going to stand out where I needed it, and then I built my tripods and my cameras and my lights to that accordingly. That way I wasn't having to rearrange my setup just to figure out where I wanted the guys to stand. So establish where you want them to stand and then build everything out accordingly. It just saves yourself a lot of hassle. The tripods were, I believe, all of the Neewer brand tripods of different varying models. They work great, they've been through a lot, and they've done pretty well for me. So the cameras I'm using for this was the Canon 5D Mark IV, the Canon EOS R, and the R5. I was using a 24-70 2.8 for my A-cam, my main wide shot. I was using a 24-105 for my right cam that was on the 5D Mark IV. And then from an R5 on the other side, I was using another 24-70 2.8 for that close-up. I felt like those lens variants worked totally fine for this situation. For my lighting setup, I chose to go with my SmallRig RC220B. This is the 220 watt bicolor light that SmallRig sells. This is a fantastic light, puts a lot of light out. So I put that on an umbrella on a C-stand just as my key light right in front of everybody, just to kind of add to the daylight coming in. That was my key light, and then I used my two Neewer LED panels, bicolor LED panels that were going to be on the side. So I put one, basically as a hairnet on either side. The light stand that I used for my LED panel was the Ulanzi carbon fiber tripods, the MT49 model. These things are really, really fantastic. They're very solid, but they're also really light. And I use these for traveling. They've been with me all over the place for putting in my check bag, etc. They work really well. Been very happy with these light stands. So setups like these are all about trial and error. When I got everything set up, I realized that my two LED panels that I'd set up for my hair light were gonna be on camera. I kind of wondered if they would be, but I wasn't sure how it would look once the cameras were set up. So I moved my one LED panel up a little bit, and then I took my second panel and I used a Neewer, however you say it, clamp that's made to fasten a light to. Those clamps are incredibly durable. This is, I think, a 9 or 10 inch clamp, and it's really, really tight. It's got a good rubber grip. So I fastened that to the railing of the staircase here, and then I was able to attach the panel to that. That way it's up out of the shot, but still will give probably a little bit of a hair light. So it's all about trying to figure out how you can still make things work when it doesn't play out just like you thought. These kinds of clamps that I just used for this light are really, really great to have on hand. So if you don't have one of those in your kit, I would definitely recommend that, because you'd be surprised the kinds of things you can clamp those to get your lights out of the shot. All right, so the lights are set up. Now the next thing was to get power to the cameras. This is kind of an optional thing. You could totally use batteries for your cameras if you want. Because I knew that I was going to be doing this throughout the day multiple times, I really didn't want to rely on battery power, just because if one dies and I don't realize it, that's just annoying, especially if the camera's live. So what I like to do is run these cameras off of a wall power. And I've talked about these in past videos, but these Canon battery adapters that can pop in like a battery, but then feed a wire out that you can plug in directly to the wall is a fantastic solution. You don't have to worry ever about your battery dying, because it's literally just pulling off of the wall power. So I put one of these in each one of my cameras. That way they were on a constant power source and I didn't have to worry about the batteries dying. Make sure you tie one of the power connectors together, because otherwise it could just pull apart and unplug and die right in the middle of your shot, and you don't want that to have happen. I've had it happen before, and ever since that one time, I now just tie them. That way, if they get tugged a little bit, they're not going to unplug. Next thing was to run power extension cords to the lights, the cameras. I got all my lights turned on just to kind of see what everything was looking like, but I wanted to see how it was going to look through the preview monitor. at my table. So the next thing to do was to run HDMI cables from the cameras over to where I was going to work. So I used 25-foot HDMI cables to run from each camera over to the Blackmagic ATEM Mini that I was going to use to do the live stream switching over to my table. Now the Mark IV and the R output is an HDMI Mini, so I got an HDMI Mini to HDMI adapter, plugged those into the Mark IV and the R, and then ran those cables to the table. The output source for the R5 is an HDMI micro, not mini. So thankfully I remembered I have a micro to HDMI cable that I use for my small preview monitor. So I plugged that in and then used the HDMI out on the monitor to run my long HDMI cable from there over to the table where I was working. Once you've got those plugged into the camera, just go ahead and take some Velcro tape or gaff tape and tape those cables to the tripod. Just keep it safe and secure. You don't want those coming out of the camera. As a reminder, with HDMI cables, you really can't run them past 50 feet. 25 feet works fine. There's really been no issues with latency or weakening signal. But if you're gonna run a camera further than 50 feet away, you're gonna need to get an adapter, an HDMI to SDI adapter, run the rest of the signal via SDI, or use wireless transmitters. So just keep that in mind. You really can't run much past 40 to 50 feet with an HDMI cable. Something additional I did to help the guys out who were going to be live was I wheeled in from one of the classrooms a 65-inch flat screen that I was going to use to mirror my laptop. That way they could see what was live, when they were live, and just kind of have a reference point for what was going on. And so the next thing was to run a 25-foot HDMI cable from that screen over to my table for my laptop. Now the brain of this whole operation that makes this thing go up a notch in production quality is the Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. I really love this little switcher board. It takes care of all the processing power from the cameras to the audio, lets you control levels for audio, switch between your cameras, you can do crossfade transitions, you can do all kinds of stuff, things I didn't even use for this event that this little board will do and take care of for you. So in the back, your inputs are your power. You have an Ethernet port, which is used to connect the switcher to a computer for control via the ATEM software control panel, which you don't have to use, it's just an option. Then you have your USB out, which sends everything from the switcher to your computer via one cable. Your audio and your video, everything goes through one cable from that USB to your computer. And then you have 4 HDMI inputs for up to 4 cameras, along with 2 audio inputs. I then went ahead and started plugging in each HDMI cable to the input for my 3 cameras, the HDMI output for my preview monitor, and then to plug the HDMI cable from the TV to my computer, I use an HDMI to USB-C adapter and plug that in directly. I got my preview monitor powered up and plugged in, and the ATEM HDMI out is already programmed to have your different boxes for preview, program, seeing what cameras you have available to send live, your audio levels, all of that is programmed right into the ATEM Mini. And when you plug your HDMI out to your preview monitor, it pops up and it's immediately ready to go right there. So let's talk about the audio setup that I'm using for this fundraising event. There's gonna be 3 guys that are gonna be on camera for this, but I only have 2 mic inputs. So what I did is I used my DJI mic, which runs 2 mic feeds into one source, and I plugged that directly in with the 3.5mm cable into one of the mic inputs on the ATEM. And then I used another Sennheiser mic pack via just obviously one mic into the second audio input on the board. So now I have 3 mics into 2 inputs. That's kind of how I solved that problem. I will say the one issue that I had, which really wasn't anything to do with the live stream board, because I've had this issue in general, because 2 of the 3 guys were wearing DJI mics, they would kind of feed off each other, so it gave a little bit of an echoey sound. So the best way I tried to solve that issue here was I had my person wearing the Sennheiser mic stand in the middle, and then the guys with the DJI mics on either side, just to kind of keep them as far apart as I could. It was really only, 4 feet that they were, 5 feet maybe that they were standing apart from each other, but it helped mitigate that a little bit. Okay, so everything is pretty much set up for tomorrow. The 3 guys will stand behind here, 1, 2, 3, each with a lav mic. Over here is the control station where I'll be running the program OBS for the live stream. One added little thing I'm doing here is I have a light on top of this camera, which is red. That way they can always know that is their camera to talk to. It's the main cam. Not gonna have them look to each camera when it's live. This way, just in their peripheral, they know that's the camera they're talking to. But yeah, basically everything is set up. Gonna start doing some tests now with OBS on Facebook, make sure everything is running, make sure the audio is in sync and everything is ready to go for tomorrow. So let's start doing some tests. This event was raising funds for a pavilion and a playground. So I had prepped a bunch of B-roll clips, things I'd edited in Final Cut Pro. I had created some graphics off of Canva, and I went ahead and got all of those ready so that I could import those into OBS for the live stream. Having a live stream system where we can cut between camera angles is cool, but if you want to take it up a notch and you want to kind of spice things up and take the production quality up, I would really recommend using a program like OBS where you can implement graphics and video clips and photos. That way it takes it from just a basic live stream with a couple different camera angles up to something a little more produced, and it shows you prepared ahead of time and just makes the quality look that much better. If you guys want to see a full breakdown on how to use OBS, import your content, push it to Facebook, have everything look really good and streamlined, I have a tutorial coming out soon, so stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video coming out soon. All right, guys, that pretty much wraps up today's video. If you guys have any comments or ideas, things I should do differently, please let me know down in the comments below. But I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video.